card.
Yeah, pretty good card. I think for me, interestingly, would also be a god, different set, though very different templating. Keranos God of Storms, which is very
Mm.
fitting because a feature match is going to be Rob versus Nam with Rono Red Storm versus Blue White Control. And the exact makeup of these decks is going to make a pretty big difference in how this matchup plays out. But this is, at least for me personally, I know it may be weird to hear from someone that seems so wholesome, but I do love both Blue Eye Control and Storm, so I'm happy no matter what happens here in round two.
Yeah, Blue Eye Control, a deck that's like near and dear, I think, to many people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good time as we pull up the Storm deck here first to look at. But the Storm deck has sort of turned into like, this was a deck that was in Modern, was kind of on the fringes, disappeared for a long time, and has come back full force with MH3 with Ral, and then is just kind of all over the place. Sometimes it seems like the best deck in Modern, excuse me. Other times it seems like, what are we doing here? And I think that sort of volatility, right, is sort of like why we don't see this deck as much as maybe we should be.
Yeah, definitely doesn't quite play out as deterministically as maybe the more powerful Storm decks in older formats, but certainly a lot of power here and a lot of consistency. Obviously, playing all red lands feels pretty good. Ruby Medallion printed in, hey, wait a second, that's your fault again, MH3, along with the other ones, also making this strategy quite a bit better. Some wishes here to grab a couple of one-offs. Some options there in the sideboard, splashing off of, looks like white and blue potentially, although those surveil lands, the blue ones at least, are just for flavor, just for the extra surveil. But Ral, to your point, definitely powering your stack all the way up. Funnily enough, like with all the impulse style draw in this deck, this is actually not that different to like mono red pauper. You're just kind of hitting a different endpoint, right? Instead of just pointing a bunch of burn spells and goblins at your opponent, you're trying to play a bunch of spells and then grape shot them out. So definitely curious to see how this one navigates, because the blue eye control list, depending on what they're rolling, it can be real tough, because I suspect we'll see a little card called Arms Chant somewhere in the 75.
Yeah, and one of the things that's happened to Blue White Control is, as Modern has evolved, is it's sort of gotten rid of this idea of playing a beautiful game, right? Of like, I'm going to
Yes.
sit there and draw some cards, and it's like, I'm a prison deck. You can call me a control
Yes.
deck, I'm a prison, I'm going to lock you guys. You see 4 Orange Chants
Ooh.
in the main deck that you highlighted. That is a card that people sideboard for the Storm matchup, and we're bringing 4 of them along with Isochronic Scepter to sort of do it on repeat. So there is a real sort of timer on this game, and we even have some main deck cards like Force and Negation. Now, you have some awkward cards like Narset, isn't going to stop a lot of the card draw from the red deck, as it does use the bottling effect of exiling, letting you play to the end of the next turn. But we still have some annoyances there with Dazed undoing everything, including our graveyard, which is something the red deck really relies on. So this is going to be a very weird matchup. And that's before we even look at the sideboard. There's a lot of hate in the sideboard. We're going to pretend it's not even there right now. We're going to focus on winning game 1.
Yeah, we'll take a look later. Obviously, some of the removal in blue white control. No, I mean, not dead. Honestly, like Ral is a card you probably want to remove, and it stays in play until the red deck is ready to use it. So it's not like you can protect it by flipping it all that easily. You're mostly just trying to build up counters and then actually use it as like a mini Mind's Desire once you get enough loyalty after flipping to ultimate. So very curious to see how this all plays out. We definitely saw plenty of blue white control. If anyone watch a little tournament called Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, which if you really like that top 8, have a nice little surprise for you all later on in the day. Someone who may or may not have top 8 at that event is going to be on a commentary. Very excited for that. But yeah, it's like a near and dear to my heart that Isochron Scepter and Arms Chant have found their way back together after genuinely close to 20 years in Extended, which is a format that obviously Modern kind of superseded, that now no longer exists. But it is fun to see this nouveau version of this deck. We're still trying to use that same absolutely filthy locket between Arms and Ice Cream Scepter with all these new tools, and as you said, much more proactive than the blue white control decks evolved, which does make me sad in some ways. But you are trying to win games in Modern, not have the most fun. So I don't blame the players for kind of taking this angle when it comes to constructing their control decks these days.
Definitely. And speaking of the control decks construction, unfortunately for Nam, we are on a mold of 5 this game. So that's going to... Yeah, we have a Prismatic Ending, which can be good for stopping one of these mana cheat cards. But besides that, we don't have anything like the Orange Chant currently. Meanwhile, Rob just setting up with these Surveil lands here.
Yep, again, just going to sculpt for a few turns. You certainly can play through a pretty high number of interactive options as you go through, but I think seeing full Arms Chant in the main, it is open decklist, of course. Maybe you're going to want to go off sooner rather than later, especially if your opponent's going to double mulligan. Want to take advantage as best you can. Obviously, if they have it, they have it, but you got to do your best and see how you can navigate here. As now I'm going to go ahead and Fetch away, finding their own surveil lands. Everyone's favorite lands. Just adds shuffling and triggers to the stack indefinitely. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, it's really impressive actually just how much like this is something that's actually as Orm Chant was talking
Oh.
about the Prevail. You love to see it if you're a Nam fan. But it's crazy to me, just like, imagine 2-3 years ago I told you your deck's gonna play 2 or 3 tap lands that are just duels, right? You'd
Yep.
be like, well, what are they doing? Drawing me 2 or 3 cards? It's like, no,
Nope.
they kind of draw a card sometimes. And
Like
it's just actually very
Scry
good.
plus. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Rusum's playing like they have some white cards in the sideboard, does Rob, but there's like red lands red blue lands that just don't do anything other than tap for red mana and surveil one, and that is good enough in both modern and good enough for legacy as well. It's really sweet lands that I think have stood the test of time and then some. As control player making land drops, always a good thing for them to see. And I'm going to start with the first threat. That one's pretty good. Going to respond by Valakut Awakening here. Going to cash in some cards here with Teferi on the stack.
Yeah,
How many
so
are we cashing in?
interesting. Sort of forced to do it here if you're going to do it because Teferi's going to lock this out. And it looks like Rob is not in love with the hand, but does have at least some things that are pretty clear to keep. And yeah, that's going to be 3 cards back. That's a lot of cards.
Yep, and unfortunately, unlike Wheel of Fortune, this is a wheel-esque effect. These go on the bottom of your library. Would love to have them in the graveyard for a card like Past in Flames, but not how the card works, as it turns out. Isn't instant, so some advantages there in this spot against a card like Wheel of Fortune, which obviously is not legal in Modern, much to my chagrin. But looking tough already. Going to have to navigate through whatever interaction Nam has, and as we already know, and as Rob probably suspects, there is already an Arms Chant in the hand. As we're going to play Artist Town, I believe here.
Now, Artist Talent, we talked about a lot of the card draw in Rob's deck being like this bottle effect like we see with Ren's Resolve. Artist Talent is actual card draw. So if we get a Narset, that is going to turn that card off for the most part. It does have other modes if you spend more mana, but that's something that now Nam is like, ooh, thank you. If I draw Narset, it's a bit better than it was a second ago.
Yeah, and one of the nice things, I mean, one of the ways to overwhelm control is obviously to get up on cards on them, and these red card draw spells are pretty close to real card draw spells. So Rob could certainly build up a critical mass and try and get through, maybe the first Arms Chant and then go again. I'm curious, does Rob have a card like, what was I thinking of? Galvanic Relay is a card that would be good in this kind of spot, depending on when Arms Chant gets cards, because that's the minigame we're going to have to start playing. If Rob suspects there's an Arms Chant, when does Nam choose to pull the trigger? Because it is, you make a lot of decisions if you're trying to disrupt your Storm opponent mid-combo. Otherwise, you just, cast it in their upkeep and trying to buy some time, which may also be good enough, as, by the way, there's a second Arms Chant in Nam's hand.
Yeah, the second Arms Chant lets Nam be a little bit, more frivolous with it. Be sort of like, okay, I'm gonna, cast this now. Sort of let you cast a couple spells. I don't need to time it perfectly. Just kind of waste. Then you'll have to rebuild from here. A lot of times we do see in response to Past in Flames as just sort of like, hey, turn that card off, and that is how they typically get to their Storm kill.
Yeah, both one of the best engines for them to win and one of the best ways to get through a bunch of counterspells if your opponent has interactions. So I'm going to shut that all off. Artist Talent doing a really good job of filtering a bunch of cards, and Ruby Medallion did resolve. So more bottling is happening. Land's going to be found off the top there in exile. And we are going to keep casting spells here, but again, going to be tough to find an actual kill. Looks like a lot of sculpting here for Rob. See how this turn kind of ends. As Valakut Awakening going to hit the bin. Cards get drawn. Flip on over. There's a Ral. It's the kind of card we're looking for.
Notably, remember, Nam did just pick up Kahir on the last turn, sort of signaling we're trying to find a way to actually, get towards winning the game. Feels like the game's a little bit locked up, and also just want to kind of lower the shields here. Could have left up something like Prismatic Ending and done the end of turn on the talent or potential Ruby Medallion. Ah, yes. The tracker to know which cards are playable this turn or potentially playable in the next turn.
Gotta love Impulse versus Bottle. I think that's the general distinction, but can get a little confusing. Good to see Rob got all of the little bonus tokens here in the feature match area. Certainly helps him. I'm sure it certainly helps me here at home and any of you out there watching on stream. Very curious to see how we navigate around all these very scary looking spells, but Rob seems confident, knows the matchup, knows the potential pitfalls, so we'll see how well they can do avoiding them there. As that is a treasure token. Thanks to Strike It Rich. And there's Kahira. The beatdown will begin.
Yeah, and I like this from Nam. Could have done something like Prismatic Ending on the talent, or maybe even the medallion, or hold it. You have a Solitude to answer the Ral, so that one's kind of, the first one's at least checked at the moment pretty easily. But get this Gahira down and just try to win the game. And yeah, I love this here. Start off with your second Orange Chant. Just burn one to get some time to untap with all your mana and not have to worry about this Ral or anything hitting the graveyard. Or hitting the play, excuse me.
Yeah, again, has 4, knows he can use a couple there. So Round Monsoon Mage. Gonna be rendered a little less effective. Does go back in, just stay in exile, excuse me. Thanks to that Arms Chant. Pretty effective little counterspell, kind of. If you want to think of it that way, stays in suspend somewhat. There'll be some players familiar with how those used to work out all the way back in Time Spiral. I'm definitely dating myself there as Gahira bashing on in once more. There is a clock on this game. I think it's funny to call this the proactive line from the Blue Control deck, but it is. A few turns for Rob to kind of figure it out, but again, Nam very, very, very happy, very calm with how the game is going right now. Everything's coming up Blue-White Control. Plenty of cards in hand, Teferi on board, a clock in play, and lots for the Storm player to try and navigate here. And Medallion, that going away that sucks. Can't even do anything with Teferi in play. Lost one of your best ways to really cheat on mana, and we're just going to do it all. Never mind.
Yeah,
you're going to be the next card.
Yeah, and so we can't. Yeah, Teferi gets us. Fair enough.
Everybody gets one. Okay, yep, you got me. You remembered your Teferi. That's nice. No, an honest mistake, I'm sure, from Rob. Mm-hmm. And just going to crack a lance, you draw a card. It's desperate times when somebody can't even sit in the bin. Untap. I mean, there's only one mana left over untapped on the Blue Control, so what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, and from Rob's perspective, he might suspect something like another Orange Chain, especially when that last one was used, but he kind of has to maybe play like there isn't if he's going to continue forward. As here's Ren's Resolve.
All right, first Ral trigger of the game. Does also discount things similar to Medallions. Again, it's quite incredible that they printed all of this text on this card, but it certainly has made the Ruby Storm deck significantly more viable in Modern than maybe the Storm decks of old. And we're going to bottle some cards and pass it on over. No, maybe still going. I think want to try and commit something here. I mean, if you suspect another Arms Chant here, I think you do want to make them play it if you can.
Ooh, our little Storm counters popped up on the screen.
I love that. Playing the land. Still got some time here. Got a treasure in play as well. Metamorphose. That card's really good with Ral in play. Make a mana, draw a card. Trigger Ral.
Now you see Nam thinking about maybe pitching this Orange Chant to the Solitude just to get rid of the Ral.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would happen. What are you afraid of if you lose your Arms Chant there? I guess you could still... It feels really hard to lose if Ral's in play. Not just because Ral's obviously a win condition, but Ral is also responsible for all the discounts, right? You already took out the Medallion with your prismatic ending. Does feel like cutting off a lot of mana from the Ruby Storm deck at this point is where you want to be, but definitely a tough decision because if Orange Chant's your only white card in hand, that is a big tool to lose in this kind of matchup.
Yeah, and there's a weird thing too where Nam can, if Rob flips the Ral and as soon as he does, ults it and loses it, and Nam just responds with Orange Chant, he kind of kills the Ral in a weird way and gets through a lot of Rob's stuff. So as long as the Passing Flame doesn't hit, then he's kind of solved that issue. The problem is, what if Rob does a bunch of Ren's Resolves and Metamorphoses, right? And that's how he flips the Ral. So that's kind of the mini game Nam's trying to figure out here of what do I care more about?
Yeah, interesting to think about. Obviously, could still hit the ult if you get enough cards, but not going to be able to cast any of them really. Armstrong says you cannot cast spells. That is illegal. And so we keep going. Metamorphose once more. And again, same spot, especially with Teferi in play. It's gross. You can't even respond to try and flip it or something like that. And looks like we're going to commit the Arms Chant here. Rob having 3 cards in hand and a card to play next turn in bottle. Doesn't seem too bad, all things considered. Going to draw a card here as well after Metamorphose, assuming it resolves. Arms Chant does not stop that from happening. And Rob says, okay. Mix a mana, draw a card, and pass the turn. Maybe hoping for enough Ral flips to get him low so Gahira would finish the game.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely beat players from them pinging themselves.
It is possible. All right, Teferi going up. Never mind, going down. That Ral back in hand where it belongs. Gahira coming back in. Teferi down to 3, drawing a card as well. And once again, we ship the turn back with all the mana available. Look, all the permanents are untapped. Planeswalkers don't often tap. Gahira has Vigilance. This is full-on Drogo gaming here from Namdang.
This is what Nam wants, and Nam got a card he really wanted, which was Consult the Star Charts. Not only is it a great way to refuel if Rob doesn't present a real problem, but it's also a blue card to pitch the Force Negation, and you could hard cast the Solitude here to answer the Ral that we know is in hand for Rob. And with Teferi, you can't flip the Ral in response with an instant like we see so often in this deck against removal.
Yeah, really good stuff there. Again, feeling very confident. Teferi is just such a nice little safety blanket. Like nothing feels like it can ever go wrong. And as a long time dig through time enjoyer, Consult the Star Charts definitely a card after my own heart. As well as going to come back down here for Rob. This one does not get discounted, so going to have to pay full for the artist talent, but deciding that the filtering is worth it here. And again, this one also can't get shot by Solitude, so an unreasonable bit of setup here for Rob. But again, now I'm kind of waiting. How much are you committing? Want to try and, deal the maximum amount of damage, so to speak. Want Rob to commit as many cards as possible before things can go wrong. Is Pyretic Ritual going to be put on the stack here? Trigger.
Yeah, one of the weird things about Rob having so much mana too is that it's like the Ral discount matters, right? Like this was obviously a one mana
Yes.
ritual, much stronger, but it isn't the end of the world like it would be before to like let them have that trigger. So looks like evens is tails. That's good to know for our future interactions.
That is good to know. Takes the damage. Still the artist talent trigger to resolve and can kind of build your own medallion here if we want to level up the artist talent. Let's look like exactly what is happening here. So I like that line from Rob. Just committing a ritual, suspecting that Ral was going to get, if it got bounced, it's probably not living through the turn. So bait in air quotes out a potential removal spell. Give yourself another medallion-esque thing. Make a land drop past the turn. Keep triggering, keep filtering. Storm counts 3. Thank you, production. We might just be going here. Poetic Ritual. Rob actually committing more because, again, the artist talent actually making it so you can kind of filter through a deck. Drew another ritual. Still keeps filtering cards. Doesn't draw cards, doesn't net cards this way, but if you can find another draw spell or another bottle spell of some kind, there's something here potentially.
Yeah, I think we used one of the rituals to up the artist talent.
Yes, we did
as well. So yeah, so now we're having the discount here. Nam does have Force Negation, and it's Past in Flames is the card that Rob really wants to win if he's to win this turn, but Nam has it checked.
Yeah, usually plus one is actually quite good against counterspells when you have an excess of mana, which is kind of where Rob might end up in this game. But the exile part of Force of Negation, shutting off the flashback of Past in Flames, is a dagger to the hearts of Storm players everywhere. Feels bad, man. Like, come on. I spent so long beating Force of Will with Past in Flames, and now this happens to me. Ooh, actually gonna Force of Negation the Reckless Impulse there. Oh, we go again. Glimpse of the Unthinkable?
Yeah. And this is the card that gives you the most looks. As to the exact mana, I'm not sure, but we do have a treasure, so no matter what, there's at least one.
I like the production just like mashing the zone counter as it keeps on going. There is another draw spell and a Ral in the exile. Obviously, Ral doesn't get discounted. It's not a Ruby Medallion in play. It's an artist talent. Only non-creature spells are going to be costing one less, but there is a lot here for Rob to potentially try and cook. I think game one, I don't know if game one or game two is easier to win, but we're going to play a ritual here. That's going to net some more mana. That should be 3 at least. And there's Ral. 1 floating. That's enough to keep bottling. Are we doing it here? There's so many spells that get played.
Well, yeah, I think the big thing is your Ral will still storm flip, right? Like,
Yes.
how many of these are instants and sorceries is our real question. The majority of them are, because we cast 2 Rals, that's 2 of the storm, and I believe everything else would count towards Ral here. So, yeah, we're flipping, and this is devastating.
Yeah, what's the number of loyalty? How much do we end up making here? That's going to be the big question. We want the number to be at least 8. Strike it rich. Rals. It doesn't trigger. It's as enter you get loyalty based on things that happened. Going to 1, that must mean we're ulting.
Yeah, and technically Nam can live from here if Rob gets very unlucky, but Rob needs to get very unlucky.
Oh, that's not very unlucky. That is very, very good. Goodbye.
Oh yeah, and you see Nam there kind of tilt his head like, was I supposed to fight over the impulse? Like what am I supposed to do? And those are the tough spots. It's like it looks like just enough mana to kind of go, and if we hit perfectly, and Nam decided like, okay, try to have the perfects, and he did. As we also see Nam slam a bunch of cards down on the table from the sideboard.
Yeah, definitely going to be taking a look at the sideboard to win this, but game 1. Not stolen away, I will say, but piloted very nicely there by our Storm player, Rob. Getting it done with the Ralph flip. I mean, that is one card you cannot force of negation. So
Hmm.
pretty good on that turn. That very long storm turns. We'll take a look here at the blue-white sideboard to kick things off. We already mentioned the arms chance. It does get better. 3 high noons in the sideboard as well, the standout cards in this matchup.
Yeah, High Noon's pretty huge. Surgical Extraction also pretty reasonable, you know. The
Hmm.
Wish makes it so it's you're never going to be able to like fully remove like a Grape Shot, but sometimes hitting past in Flames is nice. Also, if you are able to counter a Ral, then get in the graveyard, then boom, you can Surgical that. We saw how important that can be. So, it's not as lights out as a card like High Noon, but surprisingly good. And Ashiok also, sometimes I see players bring this in if they have enough cards in their main deck that they don't love in the matchup, just because it does fight over the graveyard and turns off fetch lands. It's
Yep.
not, some slam, high noon level card, but we might see Nam bring it in here on the play with being like, yeah, I actually, I've got these verdicts I don't really like. Maybe I want to get a couple more kill spells out of my deck, and I'll just bring this in and hope to get a little lucky.
Yeah, I think looking at this deck another time, and Mystical Disputes in the board is another permission spell. Not great against the mono red deck. Obviously, want the spells to be blue there. Spells now they're going to have some targets, but the thing that's sticking out to me now actually is that there is not a lot of permission in this blue white deck. It is those 2 force negations and 2 spell snares. That is basically it, unless you want to play bad cancel with Mystical Dispute, because I don't think you're bringing in Consign here. That doesn't do all that much. Although I guess you could hit a Storm trigger if you want, but that seems really loose.
Yeah, sometimes you see people try and do that. It doesn't always work. I think you can also respond to the RAL trigger before it
That's
happens,
true.
but that all requires them being at the very end of their cycle. It is a kind of, an all-in sort of thing. I think we have enough good cards in our main deck that we can go without the consign.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, you already have the 4 arms chant. That's the best
Mhm.
card probably for the matchup. We take a look here at Rob's sideboard. Silence may be sticking out, but again, not that
Mhm.
much permission to try and navigate there. Anything interesting you see there, Mason?
I think silence is probably like the big one, like you mentioned there. That's just a way for us to kind of be like, hey, I'm going to play this. And if you have a chant where you have a counter spell, you have to act now, or I'm going to go off. And that's a great way to sort of, not get got. We saw a couple times in that game how we went to the middle of a turn of storming and then we saw a chant happen, right? And it was sort of like, oh, okay, well, I guess I have to stop now. That's awkward. This makes that a little less awkward and also can be a good way to make sure you don't lose your past in flames in the middle of going off. You flip a silence and you have an extra mana laying around, you can just fire that off and be like, okay, is this passive flames going to actually resolve? And I don't lose maybe one of my key cards that actually does matter. As we talked about at the beginning of this round, blue-white control has abandoned the idea of a beautiful game. No longer are we taking up our, Jace the Mind Sculptors and drawing a couple cards. We are trying to lock you out, and having a way to kind of fight through that lock is very appealing. And I imagine we'll see that, and maybe something, like one of these malfunctions could come in. If you think there's going to be something that you can change the target. I've seen players do that sort of thing, but you want to keep it clean and small typically when sideboarding with a storm deck.
Yeah, it does have wishes too, although it's a little tricky with only 2 to access some answers. Like
Mhm.
if there is a nice concept in play, you need to try and answer. You can maybe sometimes get around it with an instant. If Teferi isn't in play, that's a big if
Mhm.
in that particular scenario. But plenty of answers for potential problems. Also, Empty the Warren's something we can maybe look at there. But we'll talk about that as we get back. So we're going to have a look at the other table for now. Is it Prowess versus another blue-white control deck? Seems to be a relatively popular choice, if our on-camera rounds are to be believed.
Yeah, and Blue White Control has a couple matchups that are really good in Modern right now. It's definitely kind of like a deck that's like we talked about the Grixis deck in round one, sort of being like, hey, I think the metagame looks like this, so I'm picking this deck. It's not like I'm a Rob Howe, you play me every weekend. And while some control players do that because they just love Blue White Control, love of the game moment, I think a lot of players this weekend are identifying like, hey, I think just Orange Chant's really well positioned. I think having these locks outs and these answers to all these creatures is really good. I'm gonna beat these Jeskai Blinky Boros Energy decks this way, ideally.
Well, I see the control player with many lands in play, and I do see 2 slick shot show-offs. I think they're plotted because they did not turn sideways last turn, but we can find out in a moment. Corey Steelcutter also on the table. Not bad options here for the Is It Prowess player to try and punch through, but typically when the control player has this many lands, you're usually in trouble.
And it looks like Andrew's maybe trying to set up Guy Reach Sanitarium to be up. So maybe has something like a Wrath and
Oh,
okay.
Teferi. Okay. Lots of maneuvering of the lands around here, but Teferi is going to be the first cut. Also, shout out to production. Arms chant kicked is the reason those slick shot shots that are in play did not go sideways. Much to their chagrin, would have loved to get in the red zone, deal some more damage, but instead it's Teferi and the blue red control play with 2 days undoings in the exile zone. I can spot just barely at the top of the table there. Seems like we've had some problems, but still plenty of cards in the prowess player's hands. So not going to be Jova, although Supreme Verdict and Force Negation looking like pretty good ways to at least reset this board if you need to.
Yeah, the real question here really is what's Andrew's life total at, right? If we're at like 8, 9, then we might just be in some real trouble. If we're sort of, in the double digits, we're probably looking pretty great.
Have to see. Prowess obviously known for its ability to throw lightning bolts and lightning bolt adjacent things at your face, whether they are creatures or they are spells. But we'll start by cracking your lands here. I have to imagine, given the texture of this game, just what I can see from the board, that I don't think Andrew's life total is that healthy on the blue-white side. But we'll find out together, which is always the fun of jumping between another table. See if Isaac Mar can navigate through what looks to be the late stages of this game before the control player locks them out. In, that one's a land. Not interested. That one doesn't deal damage right now. Go again. Again, a lot of cards in hand here, so plenty of options to pick from. Have the Core Steel Cutter in hand that got bounced by Teferi as well. But not that much mana.
I wonder how, what happened right before we came in was maybe Andrew cast a Days Undoing, found the Orange Chant, and then that's sort of because otherwise it's such a weird situation to have so many cards, with so few lands. That doesn't really normally work out that way. But we're going to go back over here to our main feature.
Mystery unsolved. All right, we're back. Storm versus Blue-White Control once again. We'll see if we can spot some sideboard cards as we keep on going through. I do see a Solitude still, though, so Namdang wanting some removal against the Ral. Ruby Medallion on turn 2, though. That feels good. And get that out of here immediately. March of Otherworldly Light. Going to take that out of the game.
Oh, and Narset off the Gyre Sanitarium. That's a little mini lock in play now.
Yeah. Takes a little while, but you want to walk the people through that one? Hey, he's surgical, by the way. Shame the Ruby Medallion got exiled by by March, sorry.
Yeah, you would have very much liked to just remove those from the deck. So the way the lock works is Narset says you can't draw more than one card a turn. So with Gyre Sanitarium, after they draw for turn, you activate it, and then you both loot, but draw a card, discard. Since you've already drawn your one card for turn, you're no longer allowed to draw any cards, so you just discard one.
Slowly but surely, you manage to shut out the cards that Rob is taking a very aggressive line here. 3-mana Ritual, Ral, and we're going to get our Ritual's Exile. What's in your hand? I want to see. That's... I'm going to call it medium juiced with 1 mana floating.
Yeah, this Manamorphose is going to do some heavy lifting. I like this line from Nam. Just remove these rituals out of the deck and sort of force him to have the other ritual. Obviously, there's for the other one, because we use this one, but this is sort of Nam's best bet, I think, to actually kind of stop the madness here and then hope that Narset can find the next answer for this Ral and then lock the game up.
Yeah, didn't know at the time as well, but there's also Passing Flames in Rob's hand, so taking a ritual out of the graveyard also pretty powerful as it turns out. The other thing that I'm thinking is that Nam might have a Force of Negation in hand and just wants the info. What are you doing with the rest of your turn? What spell do I need to counter to stop you potentially? So lots of different angles here, but I do like this. Just Surgical is just one of those cards that everyone wants to do the dream scenario, and that's just not how the card works. You should just get some value when you're bringing this card in, because it has, pretty narrow uses in a lot of cases. And Narset going to get Grape Shot is the line here for Rob.
Okay, I like this a lot from Rob. Doesn't think he can actually combo off, so just get the Narset off the board just in case, your Ral is doomed and be able to keep playing the game. And that is one of the nice things about this Mono Red Storm deck is it does have a lot of redraw effects. So if you get to continue playing, you can kind of start from nothing and end with a win.
Oh, there's a Solitude. I think 2 Solitudes actually combined there to exile that Ral. And Narset is back. Narset 2 Electric Boogaloo going to cause similar problems again. Rob has only so many cards, and Nam is basically saying, look, I'm going to run you out of cards with this Gyre Sanitarium eventually. I'm just trying to hope you don't combo me off before then, as looks like Rob's going to show the cards one more time. Very sporting there to just make sure, hey, you do have this information. I'll show you it for one last time. You've wrote them all down, and now we're going to see if we can't go again. Drew a Ruby Medallion off the top and just going to pass the turn.
Yeah, and you saw a very heads-up line there from Nam. Didn't minus the Narset. It lost basically a card, right? Uh-oh, that's bad. But played around Grape Shot being kind of cast once again. Because we could have gone, other Ritual into Passing Flames into Grape Shot this Narset, and then Nam wouldn't have a lock piece anymore. And just top decks the High Noon. Scammer Squats at it again.
Yeah, that's wild. Can only cast one spell, just Manamorphosis to cantrip there. The other card in Nam's hand, by the way, with that Narset in play, pretty confident it's a Day's Undoing. So things are going from bad to worse here, and Rob is dealing with the problems, but there are just so many problems. Unless this is a turn we can find. There's a Ren's Resolve going to kick things off. That's a very good hit. Finds a land, plays it, Manamorphose. Are we just going to go for it here?
Well, I think we're not allowed to draw off the Morphos, but you can use on the opponent's turn
Oh,
to
that's
get
true.
a little cantripping here. You can
Okay.
play it to get two, so there's a world. Ooh, you were
Yeah.
right about the Day's Undoing, and it does seem to be undoing Rob's hopes and dreams.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right. Needed more sources of bottling or exile draw to kind of keep that turn going. That little cantrip, despite making mana, not going to be able to draw the extra cards off thanks to Narset, or I guess no thanks to Narset. So instead, we are just going to go back and everyone's going to shuffle their hands and draw a fresh 7. And it's so fun and exciting. I love when the game resets. Unfortunately for Rob, he's only going to get to draw one card in this situation. Although I guess can cast the Manamorphose. It's actually in exile right now. Oh, they can't draw
Yeah,
because of Narset. Man, this card sucks.
yeah, you can't draw because of the Narset, and weirdly, Days Undoing ends the turn.
Oh,
So
also true.
the one good thing is Nam doesn't get to play a land. Got that going for you. He's a little stuck
Yep,
on lands at the
nice.
moment. Yeah. Unfortunately, for those at home, yes, if he did have a Teferi Time Reveler, he could do that on Rob's turn to end his turn. Very cool.
Hmm.
So
Very cool. Just a casual mind time twister. That seems decent. Manamorpho's going to get cast anyway. Can't draw the card. Makes the mana. Says, off you go.
great
And
play
yeah,
there from Rob. Makes his Passive Flames in the future have another card.
yeah, definitely heads up play again. These little edges are going to matter. This is a tough game. I mean, so many different permanents on both sides got navigated here, and it just feels like with the Gaia Reach on the Narset, and now that Day's Undoing, and now the Teferi. Oh boy. Are we just bouncing the medallion? That's so rude. Tick down Narset first. Get some info. And yep, he's going to bounce the medallion. Good luck winning this game.
Oh, and Nam did bring in at least one of the consigns, which does hit this medallion. Looks like,
Oh yeah,
oh no, Nam has to move to discard. That's brutal for him.
just got the draw through. Feels bad, man. Sunbaked candy
Yeah.
going to hit the bin. Rob needs a redraw. A little more than that, I think, is in store here, but it is possible. I'm going to say it's unlikely, but it certainly is possible. As embarrassment of riches for the blue-white control player, we're just going to play a Ruby Medallion, get it countered, and go cry at home, I suppose. Never mind, another one. Does stick a medallion. That is helpful, but only 2 cards left for the Ruby Storm player, and so many more than that for the blue-white control player.
Yeah, we're seeing Nam move very quickly this game. He's been very kind of, making sure I don't walk in anything. He feels very confident and wants to close this game out ASAP.
And again, that Sanitarium that got played as, I think, land number 3 in this game. Ready to roll still if we want to start taking those cards away. And eventually, I mean, no matter how good a Ruby Storm pilot you are, with the Fairy, Narset, and the Sanitarium in play, you cannot win. You will just have no cards ever for the rest of the game. It's, not quite the Orange Chant Scepter lock that we often see from these blue control decks, but it does a reasonably good impression, I would say.
Yeah, and this is a really tough spot for Rob as well. Of if I start playing cards and I don't win, then I have no hand, so the Sanitarium is fully locked. You see,
Yep.
Nam waits there because there's a couple cards. He doesn't want to let Rob have any decisions to make, and Rob also knows, well, if I don't go for it, then what am I going to do? I'm just I am going to bleed. So he had about one turn to plan, realizes the hand can't do it, and just picks the cards up.
Yep. I think a good concession. Only 20 minutes left in the round game. I mean, it's likely going to end before that happens, but do want to have some considerations for playing the final game because your chances of winning that game basically 0 at that point. As we pop back to where we were before, we have a new game. I wonder which player is up. We'll find out in just a moment, I'm sure, but it's Dragon's Red Channel versus High Noon.
All right, so it does look like Isaac won at least that last game that we saw as Andrew is on the play. But I wonder, are we in a game 3 situation here? Prowess, pretty quick deck.
That's very true. Dragon's Red Channel definitely contributing to that kind of thing. Gonna pop a land here, take a damage, and put a land into play. What's next? What fun do we have? Only 1 spell a turn, but better make it a good one. Don't need that many to flip the Dragon's Red Channel over and get the good times rolling. High Noon's not going to... Well, I mean, technically it could stop the Dragon's Red Channel later, but it's not going to do that much work. Unholy Heat to the bin. Mishra's Bauble in. 1 card away from Delirium, I believe. Does get a look at the next card, though. Holds it nice and close. And then Andrew's going to put it back on top of the library as Dragon's Red Channel swings in for 1.
Space, the Bounding Spring. Standard players know how good that card is against red aggressive strategies.
Teferi looks to be the choice here. Hallowed Fountain in hand. Plays the Planeswalker with only 2 mana. Pretty insane.
Could have finished resolving the French as Mystical Dispute was one of the last cards left there for Isaac. And a High Noon giveth, High Noon taketh away.
That's true. The old Arcane Lab. No, I can't play my own counterspell. Although not many you could play for free on your own turn here. So Teferi is going to hit the bin. And Dragon's Edge Channel is going to keep on rumbling in. Looks like we're considering... Oh, Dragon's Edge Channel, of course. The surveil that the card does that makes it so good. Artifact, instant land. I'm missing one card type if my brain is working. First iteration, that's going to do it.
Yeah, and you're kind of weirdly hoping to hit like a land here and some good spell to put in hand.
Is Mishra's Bauble good? Because we did hit a land.
Mishra's Bauble is awkward. Yeah, it is your only spell for the turn off the High Noon, but obviously it's a redraw, so this is one of the awkward things of like I can play a little bit through a High Noon, but I have to kind of make sure my plays are impactful when I'm playing.
Yeah, and thanks to Delirium, it is your first time at Fight Club Dragon's Edge Chandler, so you must fight. Rumble's in for 3 now, though, so significantly better. Also flies for what it's worth. Is that good? It seems good. That's blue-eye control. Definitely under pressure here, even with the High Noon in play. Trying to slow the game down. Beza, the great equalizer perhaps here. Good enough in standard, good enough for modern. We'll have to see. You're going to start by drawing a card.
Yeah, draw a card. That's great. That's really good.
Funny, because I can't see the life total, but as soon as the pen goes to the life pad, I'm like, I know exactly what's happening here.
Yeah. And this is one of those things you see from Beza, when it interacts with like Shock or Pain lands as it did in the last standard. Sometimes, it's like, oh, I'll take 1. Oh, I had 2 planes. Oops. Well, it's fine. I'll gain 4 life now, because I'm now behind you. Really good card when the game is slower. And with High Noon, the game is always slower.
I do like High Noon. Again, I think I'm revealing a lot about myself on this broadcast already. It's only round 2, by the way, but given the things I've said I've enjoyed about Magic, Blue-Eye Control would step to chant, High Noon, and Storm. I can understand for some people out there that maybe have some consternation, but don't worry, I'll be unbiased and chirpy. All throughout the weekend, we have so much Modern lined up for you on Saturday and Sunday. As we pop back to our feature map, Raoul is back in play on the play. That is something you'll love to see if you're cheering for Rob here and the Ruby Storm list. So what's left? Look at a card. We're surveilling away. Decisions. Oh, never mind. Draws a Flooded Strand, decides does in fact want the land, going to play a Plains, and High Noon. Also pretty good in this matchup. Better, I would say, actually, than the other one we just saw.
Yeah, this forces one of those prismatic endings that we saw. Rob has at least one in the main deck. I'm going to go looking for it.
Only spell per turn is this Impulse, but you can still play those cards later. So does line up relatively nicely. We'll see if it resolves. That seems to be the current conversation that's happening on the stack. And I am just going to double check that this is Bottle and not Exile. It is. End of next turn, you may play those cards. So stashing them away for later is Rob. Although again, still have to navigate the High Noon. Ooh, we're flipping. I actually really like this line.
Yeah, great play there from Rob. If you're going to get it locked underneath the High Noon, this is a much better way to gain the loyalty. With 1 extra, that's fine. And we actually found the prismatic ending. So a little awkward when it comes to that play, but a great way to sort of hedge around getting unlucky and not finding that card.
Yep, going to do Raoul manual style this game. Perhaps does still act as a medallion style effect. So you do have to tick it up for that to happen, at least to your next turn, but still gets the job done from that regard. In that regard. Ready. Off to the bin goes the land. Going to do a little bit of filtering here with the Surveil land. Fancy elegant parlor. And then interesting to see, actually, I was going to say interesting, but I can't imagine there's many decisions other than I will point this prismatic ending at your High Noon. Because I think winning under it is going to be challenging. Not a challenge the Ruby Stone player wants to partake in, I think. If you put a medallion in the graveyard off that Surveil. Manamorphose, good to go. Draw a card at the end of the turn. Again, only 1 each turn, but that is each turn. As Nam's like, what does this card do? Just checking. I know the number's -8. Just want to make sure that's still true. Land in play. Tech up rel. And ending in cost reduction is funny with the Sunburst, but kind of works out to be the same at the end of the day. Going to point this at there, and then Celestial Purge. Going to get pointed at Ral. That is nifty that works even when Ral's flipped over. So Ral's going to go bye-bye.
Yeah, interesting spot here for Rob. All of his spells are cost reduct for the turn still, so he could go like Ritual into Ral in order to like go off and try and win, but would need that sort of sequence of things. Could just use this turn to set up, as we've seen happen so much in this matchup, and that is a lot of it from Rob's side. Is I kind of set up and try and pick the right battle, and Nam's on the other side trying to figure out when am I supposed to get the min max of my value here.
Yeah, it's funny that I mentioned, I think Galvanic Relay in game one is a card that is playable in this format and would seem quite good against control because that is true in other formats. But I actually think the way Ruby Storm is designed with all these bottle effects already, it actually just kind of gets to play a bunch of that effect already. So it's cool to see Rob knows he has to grind in this matchup and just consistently staying up in cards, trying to put pressure on, and Nam is forced to find answers. Obviously, if Nam finds a true lock of some kind or even half of one, that's going to be problematic for the Storm player to win through, but that does take some time. Rob does have answers to try and take out the problematic permanents. So we've already seen one pretty grindy game one win out of the Storm deck. We'll see if we can find another one here, but back to Namdang's turn we go, and I see a Narset in hand. That looks pretty good in all these spots, and there's the second Narset going to go down first. There's a backup one here in case we need it later.
Yeah, and there is that Days Undoing in hand. So Nam is working towards sort of undoing all of the cards in Rob's hand.
Revealed
kind of the window.
Yeah, this is a window. I mean, again, can't draw extra cards, as we've seen already, but Ruby Medallion is going to contribute towards the goal of trying to go off here. Manamorphose, going to start the chain. Narset says no. Rob says okay, makes 2 mana instead. But again, the exile effects will work here. So how many of those does Rob have access to? Going to play a ritual. We are trying to go off here. You don't commit all this mana and not try and do something.
Yeah, and we see Rob has the Ral and has the Past in Flames. Now we know Nam is on stone cold and nothing here when it comes to interacting. Consult the star charts, a bunch of planeswalkers, and Days Undoing. That is the awkward part of having a deck that is full of sort of A plus B equals prison. Sometimes you have a bunch of the A's and none of the B's.
That's true, and Storm is 4, instant sorcery count is 3, if I recall correctly. Manamorphose. Manamorphose, Ritual, Ruby Medallion, and now this Past in Flames, and then Ral is actually going to be spell number 5 as it goes on the stack. We start flipping. Past in Flames is active, and spells are reduced by 2, which doesn't really matter that much. Although, funnily enough, it would only maybe matter for the flashback of Past in Flames if that is something that was necessary. But Piff is active, so this turn is looking good for Rob if he can find enough. Also, a Silence in hand. How much mana does Rob have floating? I don't think he can afford to pay the white man. No, never mind. He must have some because that land is not getting tapped as his ritual comes out of the graveyard. I'm kind of surprised to not see a Silence here. Because the only card that really causes problems at this point is Arms Chant. But I guess at this point it would have been cast. Also appreciate that there's a token for everything for Rob. Has a Past in Flames token now too. These are the instant and sorceries I can cast. Here's a ritual. That's going to add 2 mana, basically Dark Ritual with these cost reduction effects in play. More Ral flips happen. The pen goes to the paper, and Ral is going to be at 8. Probably. You do have to win a flip at a certain point for that to happen, but surely the Ruby Storm play is not going to fizzle that way.
It'll be a great coverage moment if we do, I'll say that.
Yeah. More draw, though, impulsing away. This turn looks so good. Again, I'm pretty confident I saw a Silence in hand. So I'm a little surprised.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you there. I think the idea here is that I would have got my Past in Flames countered if there was a Force Negation. Right. So I'm going to hold it just in case I need the mana. And then once I have the win locked up and I have enough mana, then I'll kind of pull the trigger on, hey, Silence, in case you're trying to do something, cheeky when it comes to like consign my Storm Trigger, force my thing,
Yeah.
Obviously, that's pretty unlikely to happen. I think Rob just kind of knows, like, if I got this far, things are looking good.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment here of the situation. Like I said, if Arms Chant was available, surely at this point it already gets cast. So now I'm going to look through the hand. Does have a fetch land available to crack here. But there is an unbelievable amount of cards available to play. There's 4 things we can flashback and then 2 things already exiled. And one of the things exiled is another draw spell, quote unquote, that exiles card, something you can play under Narset.
Okay, yeah, and it looks like Rob maybe is thinking like casting the silence because he was tapping his actual land.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because I kind of agree with you. Like at some point, I'm like, well, if you can afford to do this, surely you'd want to do it now because there's only really one card that stops you from this point. But also at this point, you probably would have been stopped. So I think we are going to cast it just in case. Sure, why not? No, sequencing. I mean, I don't know. Hard to say. Rob, there's a lot of different things to think through. Rob clearly very, very practiced with this deck, but is going to finally commit to science. Now knows that everything is going to be all right as long as Ral flips. We don't have to have Ral flip on time to win, but it is going to make the game a lot easier. Can't draw cards, remember though. Manamorphose does not net you a card. Although Prismatic, is there enough colors for Prismatic? Yes, if we filter with Manamorphose, is that the conversation we're having right now?
I think so, yeah. I think Manamorphose should be able to make like, blue-green or whatever, and that will go the distance. Also part of the reason why we do have that Thundering Falls, right? Instead of just two of, the Elegant Parlor, makes it so your Prismatic ending can actually hit these cards in, the blue-white control deck.
Decides it's maybe not important enough. Manamorphose is going to go off to make some more mana. No card draw. Don't remember. Ral is just going to have to flip here. Nam praying for a whiff, as production pointed out to me. That is maybe, honestly, the line you have to take here. Just 13 tails in a row or whatever.
And it looks like
oh, never mind.
Yeah, and we're going to go again.
I mean, there's so many cards on the table. There's 4 cards off of in bottle. There's 2 cards in the graveyard still. I mean, Narset's just watching this all unfold, thinking, hey, usually I'm pretty good at stopping people from drawing all these cards. And red card draw, in air quotes, is just saying, I don't think so. And this is a pretty good hit. None of these are grape shot, but I don't think that matters. We've got plenty of redraws here. I mean, again, it's not impossible to miss from this point, but it's really unlikely.
I think Rob's doing your dirty. I think there's a wish underneath that. You see how there's a Ren Resolve with a card under it? I think that's wish.
That is unfortunate for our blue-white control player.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing right now is Rob sort of saying, hey, I'm going to cast all these spells, do my thing, I'll even, whatever, hit my own medallion if I need to. And yep, I still have this grape shot on my sideboard.
Yep, very nice. Great taking it. That matchup seems so rough, but navigated beautifully. Honestly, by both players. All 3 games we saw in this match were incredible.
Yeah, there was a lot of really tight spots there for Nam on when am I supposed to force negation or ending this. Navigated those spots well, but Rob navigating through those really well too, and really knowing his role in this matchup of, hey, it's important that I do enough that you interact, but not so much that I can't go off again. Incredibly well played and moves on to 2-0 as we still have more Magic to show you.
Love that. Game 3, I have to assume here between Isaac Ma and Andrew Kidston. Dragon's Age Channel and High Noon are still doing battle, by the way, but and Dragon's Age Channel are finally going to bite the dust here. Looks like a Purge going to get cast here. Seems to be a pretty popular sideboard card for the blue-white decks today.
Yeah, great way to answer problematic cards like Psychic Frog, but also Flage Titan of Fire's Fury.
Supreme Verdict in hand, Consult, and a Teferi looks like Andrew's hand. Not that many lands, which Control typically not all that happy about. Does Isaac have any follow-up threats? That's a question here. Again, playing under High Noon, pretty annoying for stuff like Steel Cutter. See a Lightning Bolt, see a land on the prowess player's side, but I don't see pressure. Tough to win against a Control deck when you can't total their life total. If you let them sit there and do their thing for a while, you are going to lose. That has been true since 1996. It's still true now.
As it does look like there's at least a good one on top for Isaac, so he leaves it with the Surveil. Really valuing holding up this Mystical Dispute and not getting, a Narset where it's a fairy on board and then having to play underneath additional lock pieces here. As we could have seen what we saw in game number 2 there at the Expressive Iteration to just try and dig for lands.
All right, Surveil, have a peek. We can't see, but Andrew can. Likes it enough to keep it on top. It's probably a land. It is. Flooded Strand.
Yeah, and it looks like Andrew has Consult the star charts in hand, so maybe waiting to see what Isaac does and then sort of get max information. And with only one spell a turn, you don't have to worry too much about a follow-up happening.
6 minutes just left in the round, by the way, so not a lot of time to finish this game, although again, Prowess the deck pretty good at getting it done. Blue-white, maybe not so much. Little shortcutting here for Andrew, gonna both cast his card and find his land all in one. Does have to shuffle before consulting, but Star Charts is the kind of card that pushes you kind of through this mid game gives you enough card volume to try and overpower the tempo deck here. So a very good spot with only a Dragon's Edge Channeler, especially if Andrew can find an answer for the card. Not a guarantee, but seems pretty likely, all things considered. As we're actually just considering with Consult on the stack. Can let it resolve here.
Yeah, I think we've got the High Noon was in play for a second.
Looks like Mystical Dispute might be the card in Isaac's hand. Maybe tipping it a little there, but Consult will resolve, thanks to High Noon in part. And we'll look at a couple cards here for Andrew. Teferi in hand, Verdict in hand, Isochron Scepter. Now that's a way to maybe force a concession out of your opponent if you're low on time in a round.
Yeah.
You can find the other half though.
You really do. Andrew also probably, like you said, can kind of figure out like, okay, there's got to be like a mystical dispute type card. Remember, it's open deck list, so if there's any sort of interaction in that vein, Andrew knows the potential options it could be. So even if there's a spell pierce, he kind of knows like, okay, something like that has to be in hand if you're interacting here. Might inform his decision just a little.
All right, picks up 2. Looks like one of them is Force of Negation. Supreme Verdict. Get him out of here, Dragon's Edge Channeler. No counter spell. Necessary. Nice Mystical Dispute, buddy. Plays a land, passes the turn. 4 minutes left in this round, but no threat here for the prowess player. But do have to win the game here on the blue-white control side.
Yeah, Corey Steelcutter the draw. Typically a great card against interactive decks. Not so great into High Noon.
Yeah, decides on iteration instead. Wants to get a little deeper. A little bit more card volume, maybe play a land drop, Slickshot, Show Off among these cards. Can't play that one, remember. Puts one in hand, one in exile. That one's gone forever thanks to High Noon. And one on the bottom, going to pass it back. Very quick untap here for Andrew. I think understands the clock here. Needs to get this game over with if he thinks he's going to take it down. And right now, this position's looking pretty good for the control player. But the game must, in fact, end as Teferi goes down. That's going to get disputed, I have to imagine. Does have enough lands left over, though. Look at that. Open deck lists. Yep, I'll pay 3. That's fine. And that's Teferi's in play. Passes the turn, ticks it up.
Yeah, great play there from Andrew. Might seem small, but sometimes players might minus just to get their value, and the Slickshot Show Off that we know is in hand would have been able to pick off that Teferi.
And there's said bird. Again, also typically quite good, but when you can't play extra spells to trigger the prowess, significantly worse as an aggressive creature. No more answers, though. It's Sanitarium, Spell Snare, Force of Negation, but Teferi, of course, the Great Equalizer, another High Noon. And that might mean we're on the deal damage with one High Noon plan?
Yeah, I think that's a totally reasonable thing. It looks like maybe activating... Oh, getting our Kahira, playing nice. Our Kahira.
Okay, yeah, we understand the clock.
Yeah.
I have 2.5 minutes left in this round, and I really want to win round 2. Spell Snare, that's absolute daggers there, and Andrew's going to untap and send in Kahira. Such a silly looking card from time to time, but my goodness, is it good in these control decks. Mm-hmm. And this High Noon number 2, that's a removal spell answer as well. This looks real tough for Isaac.
Yeah, and like you were saying with the damage, High Noon's representing that you're already at 10, quote unquote, right? Deal 5 twice. So, yeah, these sort of spots are great. I mean, your opponents, what are they going to do? Hit a land drop here? Can't really do too much. They're not going to be able to bolt your Kahira on your turn because Teferi plus High Noon's a lock. So you can either just activate your land or shoot at the face. So many good options. I love this from Andrew.
Yep.
Bang.
Yep, straight in the face. Thank you for reminding me, by the way, that High Noon can, in fact, hit any target. And Isaac's face is a target here. Under 2 minutes left, but I think Andrew's playing more than quickly enough to have this one done. Fiddles with the die a little bit, ticks up. Goes in with the Kahira, passes the turn. Please keep playing the game. Ike knows that the win is... very close. 8 damage on the table between the Kahira and that second High Noon. And again, locked out under the Noon and the Teferi. Andrew leans back in his chair. I think understands the situation, but Isaac's going to keep on playing it out. There are always outs, Mason.
There are outs. I think Isaac's about 7 to 6 life, somewhere in there. We've fetched, we've shocked a couple times. We've been hit by Kahira twice. So we might be dangerously close to this High Noon beating us in a way we never really intended.
Yeah, not what the card's supposed to do, but certainly been effective enough in this game. Turns off all of the power stuff, makes expressive iteration significantly worse. Yeah, just says, yeah, whatever. Have expressive iteration. There's a High Noon in play. This Force of Negation doesn't matter. Hold it up on your turn, alongside your Kahira and your High Noon, so nothing silly can happen. You can just play it as a good old negate for 3 mana. Never mind, High Noon now. That does open up some instants. That's actually maybe all good. Oh, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you see him kind of point there. Typically, that could have been an awkward moment, but Teferi is fun for everyone. As we see, this blue-white control back, yeah, is really, really good at sort of locking somebody out of the game and then just kind of winning before they get a chance to get out from underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes obviously the lock is just the game, and it lasts for long enough that that's all you need. But very well navigated. They're under some time pressure. They understood that the game needed to get over. High Noon was doing so much work there for Andrew, and then just said, you know what? The correct play here is to pay 5 mana for a 3/3, and that in fact was the right play.
Congratulations to Andrew here, though. Moving on to 2-0. Isaac seemed to play well from everything that we saw, but was not able to kind of pull it out. 1-1, still very much alive with 9 rounds of Magic left to go today.
That's true. It's 2 rounds down, but plenty more to go today. 15 total plus top 8 across the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Don't go too far away. We're going to go to a break, but RC Calgary returns in just a moment.